Hello and welcome to Investment Insight, your clear take on the markets. Let's get started. Today, we're doing a deep dive into some major strategic forces that are reshaping the global economy. These are moves happening pretty silently way beneath the surface of the daily news. We're going far beyond the usual quarterly reports to look at how governments and huge corporations are basically rewriting the rules for infrastructure and manufacturing. So our mission is to break down four distinct but deeply connected themes. We're looking at a huge new U.S. industrial strategy, the AI power crunch, the comeback of a controversial energy source, and how big finance is redesigning the plumbing of money itself.
And that's really the key point right at the top.
Yeah.
Recent analysis shows governments and corporations are moving away from just reacting to the market.
They're designing it.
They're actively designing the rules of the game. So for you, the learner, understanding these big structural shifts is, well, it's way more important than tracking the day-to-day headlines. Because right now, policy is driving everything. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's start with what sources are calling the Genesis mission. This sounds huge. The comparisons are to things like the Manhattan Project and even the Apollo mission.
It's that scale, exactly. It's being framed as the third national mission.
And all of this is coming from a sense of crisis.
A profound sense of strategic vulnerability, yeah. The data suggests this deep concern that while the U.S. still leads in tech R&D and design, it's become incredibly reliant on Asia, especially China, for the actual, the factory floor. The manufacturing.
Well, here's twofold.
Right. First, it's a massive national security risk. And second, if you don't lead the next generation of manufacturing, which is all about AI, robotics, advanced processes, you could lose your tech supremacy altogether.
Yeah.
Genesis is the big long-term answer to that.
Okay, but it seems like a total overhaul. And manufacturing is global for a reason. It's cheaper. How can the U.S. possibly compete on cost, even with automation?
That's the fascinating part of the strategy. The goal isn't to just bring old factories back. It's to leapfrog the whole model by using tech that makes cheap labor irrelevant. What sources outline is a full-packaged strategy. Think less about building one factory and more about redesigning the entire system for all future factories globally. It's built on three pillars.
Okay.
The first pillar is the AI-based autonomous factory. The core idea here is using robotics, real-time optimization, and something called digital twins.
Wait, can you unpack digital twins for us? That sounds like a technical term.
For sure. A digital twin is like a perfect real-time virtual copy of a physical factory.
So like a simulation.
A very, very advanced simulation.
Okay.
Before they change anything in the real world, move a robot, try a new material, they test it millions of times in the digital version. It lets them optimize everything with almost zero latency and saves billions in costs and basically removes human trial and error.
Right. So you solve the labor and cost problem with software and robots. What are the other two pillars?
The second is advanced chips and semiconductors. This is about bringing the entire supply chain design, fabrication, everything for AI, robotics, defense into the U.S. and allied countries.
And the third?
Guaranteed critical inputs. So energy, critical minerals, biotech, quantum engineering, you need to control the whole supply chain from the ground up.
So what's the ultimate goal here? It sounds bigger than just reviving U.S. manufacturing.
It is. The strategic goal is nothing short of solidifying AI supremacy. The plan is to create and then export this whole AI full-stack package, the models, the chips, the cloud, the robots, to allies.
Creating a new kind of tech block.
Exactly, one that sets the global standards for the next few decades.
So the takeaway for you, the listener, is that this is a 10-year-plus structural shift. It's not short-term stimulus.
Right, which means investment in these sectors, semiconductors, AI infrastructure, robotics, is going to be driven far more by the policy cycle than the typical economic cycle.
You have to follow the policy, not just the GDP numbers.
Exactly. You look for the government contracts, the subsidies, the regulatory fast-tracking. That's where the long-term returns are going to be.
That U.S. strategy and those autonomous factories, they're going to need a massive amount of reliable power.
Which brings us right to our next deep dive. The huge bottleneck in the AI race. Energy.
It's the biggest bottleneck. The AI revolution has an enormous electricity bill, and it's hitting a physical wall.
Which is why this deal we found is so symbolic. Sources confirm Google, or Alphabet, is buying an energy developer called Intersect for nearly $5 billion.
It's a huge tell. It confirms that the biggest constraint on AI growth isn't chips anymore, it's power. Pure and simple.
And the problem isn't just making more power, is it?
No, that's the crux of it. The problem is the speed of getting that power to the data centers. You've got slow utilities, massive queues to connect to the grid, permitting nightmares, and even shortages of basic things like transformers.
So there's an analogy here.
Yeah, a simple one. Imagine Google bought a dozen brand new, super powerful ovens. Those are the GPUs. But the power company, the utility, says it'll take them years to install the heavy-duty wiring and fuse boxes needed to run them.
And Google is basically saying, we can't wait? Precisely. They're buying their own electrical contractor. The quote from the sources is blunt. Utilities are slow. Hyperscalers must be fast.
So how does buying Intersect solve that? Are they just jumping the queue?
It's more clever than that.
Mm-hmm.
Intersect's specialty is co-locating power generation right next to the data centers, sometimes on the exact same campus.
Oh, I see. So they reduce their need to connect to the big, slow legacy grid.
They create their own high-speed power ecosystems. Alphabet's stated goal is to bring more capacity online faster. It's vertical integration for energy.
And this connects right back to the Genesis mission. You can't have an autonomous national industrial base without guaranteed 2047 power.
Absolutely. And this is a broader trend. The hyperscalers are going for an all-of-the-above energy strategy, renewables, gas, even nuclear. So for you, the investor, the focus has to shift beyond just GPUs.
To the whole power supply chain.
Entire thing. We're talking transformers, switchgear, power management systems, the really granular industrial stuff that makes the grid work. That's where the new bottlenecks and opportunities are.
This demand for stable, always-on power is forcing huge policy changes everywhere. Which brings us to Japan and its pretty dramatic reversal on nuclear power.
This is a massive pivot, and it shows how fundamental energy needs can override decades of political sentiment when national strategy is on the line.
And the clearest sign of this is the push to restart the Kashiwazaki-Kariwa nuclear power plant. This is the world's largest, right?
It's the world's largest, yes. And it's become this huge symbolic test case for restoring public trust in nuclear energy.
And it's operated by TEPCO, the same company from the Fukushima disaster. That has to be an incredible political hurdle.
It's the ultimate test. TEPCO says it's completed the most rigorous safety upgrades imaginable, but the real challenge is getting local, political, and social buy-in. But frankly, the economic reality is forcing their hand.
Why the urgency now?
Two huge pressures. The first is cost. Since shutting down its reactors, Japan has been importing massive amounts of LNG, coal, and oil. Sources show that's been costing their economy something like $60 to $70 billion a year.
Which weakens the yen and drives up inflation.
Exactly. And the second pressure is the need for AI baseload.
There it is again.
It's everywhere. Japan has built up a lot of solar and wind, but it's intermittent. A data center or a chip fab needs perfect 247 stable power. They can't have fluctuations. Nuclear is it's uniquely suited to provide that.
And data indicates this isn't just a temporary fix.
Yeah.
They're looking at extending the life of old reactors and even building new next-generation ones.
Right. So Japan's move basically validates nuclear power as an unavoidable choice for any advanced nation trying to power an AI-driven future. Because a lot of legitimacy to similar discussions happening in the U.S. and Europe.
So the key insight for an investor is what?
That nuclear assets are long-term policy and security assets. They aren't simple growth stocks. Their success depends almost entirely on political approval and social trust. The policy cycle is everything.
Okay, so we've covered national strategy, energy infrastructure, and geopolitics. Now let's look at the financial plumbing needed to power this new economy. Sources are saying JPMorgan Chase is looking at offering crypto trading.
Right, and it's easy to see that headline and think JPMorgan has suddenly become a big believer in speculative crypto.
But that's not the real story.
The analysis suggests it's a defensive move. Client demand is there, the regulations are getting clearer, and they can't afford to lose those clients to other platforms. They need to be the regulated gatekeeper.
So the crypto trading is just the front door. What are they really building inside?
Their real strategic focus, the multi-trillion-dollar prize, is real-world asset tokenization, or RWA.
Okay, so not Bitcoin. They're focused on things like bonds, real estate.
Exactly. Government bonds, corporate debt, private equity funds. They want to redesign how these massive traditional assets are moved, settled, and recorded.
Let's use an analogy for that.
Okay, think of it this way. The bank isn't interested in the crypto casino. It wants to install all the new, regulated high-tech plumbing and vaults for all future financial transactions.
And what problem does tokenization solve for them?
Speed and efficiency. Right now, using a huge corporate bond as collateral can take days to settle. It's slow, it's expensive, it locks up capital.
Yeah.
By issuing that bond as a token on a private blockchain, Ownership transfer becomes instant
which frees up trillions in collateral across the system.
and vastly reduces risk and cost. And we know they're already deep into this with their Onyx platform. The end goal is a system where basically all financial assets are tokenized, with the bank as the central regulated node managing it all.
So the big takeaway for you, the learner, is to shift your perspective
Right. Stop focusing on the price narrative of which coin is up or down.
and focus on the structural narrative, how the whole system is being rebuilt.
Exactly. The real opportunities might be in the infrastructure and middleware companies, the ones building the tools for the banks, not in the speculative coins themselves. But there's a risk note here.
Which is?
This will be gradual. If there are any major security breaches or big regulatory changes, the banks will slow right down. This is an infiltration, not a revolution.
So when we connect all four of these deep dives, the Genesis mission, the AI power crunch, Japan's nuclear pivot, and JPMorgan's strategy, what's the common thread?
The common thread is a huge coordinated move away from pure market liberalism and towards strategic planning and infrastructure control. Policy and geopolitics are now the primary drivers of investment returns in these critical sectors. It's a whole new game.
We've seen the AI revolution isn't just about chips. It's about power. It's about physical manufacturing. And it's about the financial plumbing to fund it all. So, given that the U.S. is actively designing a new tech order with this Genesis mission, here's a question for you to think about. Which relatively unnoticed part of the industrial value chain, maybe the specialized software that runs those digital twins, or high-precision industrial sensors, or even unique components for these new power grids, which part will benefit most from this long-term push to rebuild the entire manufacturing value chain? Something for you to explore on your own. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button.